Hello and welcome into our Supporting Women in Sports panel as a part of our National Girls and Women in Sports Day celebration here at UNC Pembroke. I'm John Gross and I'm very excited to be joined by some great guests today, three very important members of our UNC Pembroke athletics family. We'll start off with some quick introductions. Molly McCann is a redshirt junior on the UNCP track and field and cross country teams. Bianca Bateman is a junior on the UNCP swim team. And Morgan Sheehan is a former UNCP student athlete and currently serves as the Associate Athletic Communications Director. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I want to go around quickly, and Bianca, we can start with you. I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your story. What inspired you to get involved with what you currently do?
Swimming was a passion of my parents. They wanted me to be in a different type of sport, not the common cheerleader, certain things that just breaking certain things and with the social life and what they put with the Black girl, something new. So swimming was an avenue for me to kind of get through in that aspect. My parents really pushed me to start and stay with it, even though you had complications like, you want to get your hair all big sometimes and get your nails done. But, being able to have a sport that, exposes you to other different types of people and different types of places. So that's kind of what kept me going through my sport and what started me.
Molly, how about for yourself? What inspired you to running?
I had a PE coach in second grade say that I was good. She said I was a good runner. And she was the middle school coach. So she said, just join the team in a couple years. So, to 7-year-old me, I was like, I must be so great. So I went home and told my parents that I was going to run cross country. And they were like, it's kind of weird, but okay. So I ran with my dad before school, from second grade until I started in sixth grade on teams.
Morgan?
My first toy was actually a cloth tennis racket. My parents owned and operated a tennis club in Swansboro, and so neither of my parents played tennis in college, but my mom played as a PE credit, and she had a doubles partner in college, and they played for recreation and intramurals all the time. And then my dad, he was a baseball player growing up. And one of his PE teachers in college said, if you had a good piece of equipment, you could actually be kind of decent at this. And so my dad picked it up in college, and it just so happened that when my parents met, that was something that they had in common. And both of them were my high school tennis coaches. And so I like to say that it was kind of in my blood, like I was born to play tennis. But that's how I got my start.
Wow, so two of the three of you had a direct impact from a PE coach telling somebody along the way that they're good at what they do. That's very interesting. For the two current UNCP student athletes, what does support of women's sports mean to you, and how has support of women's sports impacted you along the way? And Bianca, we could start with you.
Okay, the support for women, it's impacted me a lot because it shows how, especially for our all women's team, we don't have a guys team, how we can all come together and help each other, not just physically, but a lot mentally. Mental health is really important in my sport, especially with girls trying to manage a team of girls. It's kind of overwhelming, but like the support helps us get through day to day, making sure that we're keeping each other accountable, making sure that everybody is just, doing their best, giving their best in the pool and out of the pool. So, yeah.
Molly?
I mean, I think it's everything. With running, especially the way men and women train, our bodies are just so different. So I think it's so important that we just have a group atmosphere of women just supporting each other. And, we'll all be sore and then we'll all complain about it and we're all feeling the same. And I mean, even I've had female coaches who, again, understand more what it's like to just be training day in and day out as a woman. And sometimes it's hard for a man to understand that. So I think just having support or a role model or someone who's been through it that is also one that has a better perspective on it than you do, at least as a younger age. So, I mean, I think having people, peers and coaches that are women make it 10 times easier.
Molly, I want to follow up with you. You were involved with the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, SAC for short. We'll keep it at SAC because the full name is a long
Yes.
one. But first of all, what exactly does your role entail with SAC?
I'm the president this year. My senior year, I've been the president. My freshman year, Morgan got me to do it. They needed another girl for cross country, so I started my freshman year. And then sophomore and junior year, I was the vice president. And I loved it. I mean, I did it in high school, so I knew when Morgan came to me, it was something I wanted to do. So typical things that I do, today I had a Peach Belt SAC meeting, and we talked about volunteer opportunities and a little bit of legislation, but it's kind of hard when we're all not at a conference together. But I do that twice a year. I go to a Peach Belt conference, and we all discuss things that we think would make our universities and sports and conference better. And then I relay that to the SAC here, and then we all try to volunteer for our school and get our athletics involved in stuff outside of just ourselves.
How do you feel that your role as SAC president creates support and maybe more opportunities for women in sports?
I mean, I feel like if you see a woman doing it, then that gives you more of like a thought of, oh, I can do that too. So like when I was little, I went to every year in Tallahassee, there was the NCAA cross country championships. So I'd like to go and watch those girls. So just if I can do a small thing like be SAC president and another girl sees that, and that could, inspire them to do something. So I think it's everything. It's really important.
Morgan, you're in a very interesting position because you are a former student athlete, and now you have the responsibility of stories of current student athletes. How do you take on that responsibility of representing and supporting women in sports as a sports information director?
I think it's pretty cool that it wasn't planned this way, but it works out that the sports that I cover are all females. The only non-female team that I do not cover is swimming right now. But the fact that I do have the interactions with so many female athletes and even the swimmers, a lot of them, they'll come and they'll fill up their water bottles and it's right by my office. So, I mean, my door's open all the time, and just having that interaction with them and knowing that there's another female in the department who isn't a coach or isn't someone who is directly related to your team, I think that's huge, because I know when I was a female, it was always nice to know that there were other females in the department or around campus that were going to support you and were there for you if they needed you or anything like that. So it is kind of a unique role, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
What impact did your experience as a student athlete have on your current role?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think really understanding what it's like to be a college athlete and a student at the same time. I went through all of that. I know what these athletes are going through. I know what the female athletes are going through. And so at times, if I'm trying to get some information from a female student athlete or just an athlete in general, and maybe I don't get a response in the time that I want it to, I have to remember they are still students. They're a student first, and then they're an athlete. And so I have to put my like perspective back on them and say, it's not always on my time, and I have to be more understanding of that as well. But it is nice to know, like, I've been there, I know what they're going through, and sometimes people will come up to you and say, like, oh, I know what you're going through, but sometimes they really don't. So it's nice to know that I do have that relationship with them. And like for Bianca, okay, I'm not a swimmer. I know how to swim, but I did not swim in college, and I've never swam competitively, but I know what she's going through as far as lifting, as far as training and all that. Molly, with running, I don't run. Everybody knows that, but still knowing like you're on a strict schedule and all of that. So I can relate to athletes and female athletes that way as well.
Bianca, I think you're in a very interesting position as well. The swim team has had tremendous success this year, really so far the best year in program history, and it's a very new program. You are part of a group that you're setting the foundation for this swimming program at UNCP. What has that experience been like for you?
This year has been amazing. From winning conference last year was just so amazing till now. Like the freshmen that we recruited, everybody's working so hard. We've been having a winning season so far. Being a part of that, especially from my freshman year to now, because when my freshman year, it was only a second year program. And now, within these 2 years that I have, well, 2.5 years that I have been here, it's been so great to see the big changes, the big successes that we have, multiple accomplishments, individual and team records being cut every year. It's been really great to be a part of it and, have the experience of being a part of a really winning and achieving team.
And I want to follow up on something that you mentioned earlier. You pointed out that there is no men's swimming team. It's the UNCP swimming is the women's team. How much
Right.
of an extra, I don't know if motivation or responsibility is the right term for it, but you are the swim team.
Yeah, we feel very obligated to prove ourselves. Faithfully, actually, like we push ourselves every day in practice because we know like it's just us. We know that as women, like we have to shine because like you have football and track has the boys and like other teams have guys teams and we know it's just us. So we feel obligated to just go out every time and prove ourselves because we know that we worked hard and we are, the best so far. So yeah.
Well, you've been doing a great job so far this year, and
Thank
we look
you.
forward to your continued success throughout this season. Uh,
Thank you.
Representation is a word that has made its way towards the forefront of the discussion of women in sports and just diversity in general, whether it's in business or politics or in sports. So we'll go around quickly. What does representation mean to you, and why is it so important to see someone who looks like you? We could start with Morgan.
To me, when I hear representation as far as like females in sports and just sports in general, I think of how a person carries himself. It's not always how a person performs, but it's how they carry themselves as they're performing. You might not be the best in your sport, or you might have an off day, but if that person carries themselves with class and dignity and still is a good sport about it, to me, that's what I think of when I hear representation.
Bianca?
In a sport like swimming, representation is important when you see someone like you or has the mentality like you. It means a lot to know that you have somebody that kind of has your back without knowing you, I guess. And with that, the representation matters because it's like a team thing for me. Like we're showing that we're doing this. We can do this together. So representation means a lot, especially when you see for like our team, the diversity of the girls, like different cultures being able to come together and still bring something of success. So
Molly?
I mean, I agree completely with what they're saying. You, like I said earlier, you always like to see other people do something and you're like, I can do that. Just having someone inspire you, I think makes a world of difference. It makes you work harder. And for example, like Morgan and Christina, they both were college athletes and now they're in two pretty powerful positions. And, as like a young athlete, not young athlete, but as, young adult about to go into the workforce, it's like, okay, these were successful college athletes and now they're thriving in the real world. So, I mean, why could I not do that?
This is a question that I like to ponder myself, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on. As three women who compete or work in sports, what can men do to support women in sports? I'll let you think about that for a second, and whoever has an answer first can go ahead.
I'll just say treating us as equals. Oftentimes, like I said earlier, our bodies are different. So, say a boy runs just like a 17-minute 5K, and then a girl run a 19-minute 5K. That's the same thing. It's just as important. It's just as impressive, or whatever the times may be. So on the clock, they might look slower, but we're still putting in the same effort, if not doing better. So I think a lot of times people will just underestimate women or be like, that seems fine. But in reality, we're doing the same thing. And I've heard an argument before about what's harder, baseball or softball. And I'm like, that's not fair. Like, it's the same, it's similar. You can't compare one to the other. Both of our teams work so hard and they're both great. So I think just seeing us as equals and not, that's the girls' team,
Molly, and it's not fair either that the guys have longer legs, so
Yeah, exactly.
take that into consideration too.
Yes.
For me, I would probably say I definitely agree with what Molly said, like treating us as equals, but I would also say not looking at females any differently. It amazes me that people are still like it's a newfound fact that women know sports or that women enjoy sports. To me, that is like absolutely crazy because I come from a very athletic family, and a family who, I mean, we plan our family vacations around sporting events. So to me, it blows my mind that people are so like, you enjoy sports, you watch sports. And it's like, yes, I do. And I enjoy talking about sports too. So I definitely think treating females as equals and not thinking that we're not capable of doing anything. I'm just as capable of doing something that a man would do. I feel like, on any day. Maybe I can't lift as much, but I can still lift a lot. So just not viewing me as somebody who is weaker or not capable of doing something.
I agree. I just have to say real quick, I totally know what Morgan's talking about. I'll randomly like play a sport with someone and they'll be like, wow, you're actually good at that, or you're more athletic than I thought. I'm like, well, what is that supposed to mean? Like, because I'm a girl or because I run cross country, like because I don't do like a hand-eye coordination sport. I'm like, yeah, I can do other things too. Like, thank you.
I definitely want to that they kind of summed it up really. I can build on it with the fact of knowing your sport. I think a lot of guys like feel like, oh, I'm macho, like I know it all. Like, no. Like we can always receive and give information and be able to help each other. But like I think for guys, they just kind of be like, you know what, I know this is right. But like, giving and receiving information is very important, I think, in supporting. But like it just sucks sometimes because like I really have learned my sport and guys just kind of like pull me down and I'm like, I know this. Like you cannot tell me that I don't know this. So I think that that's another point to add on to what they said.
I'm going to add one more thing along with that. And Bianca, you kind of made me think about this when you were saying it. There's a difference in giving someone like constructive criticism and then continually like knocking them down. And so I think for females, and I'm not going to speak for you two, but I think I probably could, being a former athlete as well, there's a difference between constructive criticism and taking it. And I think all athletes can take that. But sometimes I think that males are more like dominant. And so they're trying to say, like, okay, we're going to put you down because you don't know this. And so just knowing the difference between constructive criticism and then just being downright mean about something.
Yeah, definitely.
To follow up on that, would you say that the way that men look upon women in sports or maybe act towards them, or that's maybe the biggest challenge that you face as a woman in sports?
I think so a lot, especially in swimming, because sometimes some people you'll be surprised like they don't consider swimming a sport. I've heard that a lot. Like that's surprising to me. So like when I talk to guys about it, I'm like, yeah, I swim. They're like, oh, swimming. I didn't know it was a sport. Like some people on campus, like, I didn't even know it was a swim team here. And I'm like, wow, well, we're here. Like
Anyone else to add on that, or you agree?
No, yeah, I completely agree.
And beyond,
I would agree as well. And I would say too that it's not all males that are like this. And I think that there are a lot of males that do respect females in sports and in this sports industry. But unfortunately, there are still enough people who don't respect him that overlooks the people who do respect women.
I agree, yeah.
and Bianca, I have to say, to follow up on any guy out there who may say swimming is not a sport, try swimming like 10 laps. You won't like it.
I want them to swim a 200. Swim a 200 with me. We can do it together.
Are you optimistic about the future of women in sports? Whether it's about women working in sports or just the growth of women's sports leagues in general.
Yeah, I think we've come a long way. I think for sure. I know I was talking to my grandma about this, but I think when she was in high school or middle school or something like that, they weren't allowed, like the women weren't allowed to play sports or be in PE class. Like there was something crazy that I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So I mean, my grandma is 74, and that's not in the grand scheme of things, that's a blink of an eye. So the fact that now three women are sitting here that have participated in college sports, and I'm sure have done club activities and all sorts of other stuff when we've been allowed to participate. I can just only imagine what's going to happen in the next few years or decades. I think I truly do think eventually we will be seen as total equals. Whether it's coaching too, like women coaching in big leagues and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's going to become a new normal, hopefully.
I'm pretty optimistic. I'm happy. I'm excited to see what's to come because now girls can play football in college, y'all. Did y'all know that? They can play football in college. So like I'm excited to see like, girls stand up, girls rise up. I'm so optimistic about it. I can't wait to see it like, when I'm 40 telling my kids about everything that happened when I was in college and stuff. So I'm very optimistic for the future just to see what will come.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. I think that the future is bright for females, and I think it's extremely bright in athletics and college athletics. To me personally, I've always looked up to someone like an Erin Andrews and Holly Rowe, and it's so nice to turn on sports and see that there are a lot more female reporters, and they're not looked at any differently, and they know what they're talking about. So for me, as someone who has watched sports their whole life, and to still see these women on the sidelines and still doing what they love, to me, that gives me a lot of hope. And I think it would give you two hope as well. But I agree. I'm very optimistic, and I'm excited about it.
And Morgan just brought up a couple of people who she looks up to, Bianca and Molly. Who are some people, whether it's in sports or beyond that, who inspire you?
You can go first.
Okay. My biggest inspiration is definitely my mom. She has like followed me, my parents, but my mom especially, she did sports in high school. She's pushed me so much mentally and physically. She was a dancer. People don't think that's a sport, but they're on a rigorous schedule too. She was a dancer, so she can talk me through a lot of the things with mental, downfalls, or like if I don't achieve something that I want to achieve. She's a really big advocate for me, and it really has helped me with these hard times during these years of club swimming and also college swimming.
I've been very fortunate to grow up with a lot of strong women around me, like my grandma and my mom. My mom grew up playing golf, like all the time, and so she taught us as kids to be disciplined in our sports and to stay focused and to find a love behind it. So my mom and my grandma like that, and one of our very close family friends, her name is Vanessa. She's like my big sister. I mean, she teaches me. I called her last week, and she gave me some inspiration to not give up, not necessarily give up, but just keep your head high, like calm down, like it'll all be okay. And then one of our high school, she's the coach now, but she played basketball at Auburn back in the 80s and 90s when they won the SEC championship. So I've been very lucky to be surrounded by athletes and non-athletes that have encouraged me in school and sports to teach me to become a better woman, and then also just a better person.
All right, final question for you three. What would your message be to any young girls or young women out there who want to get into sports or want to work in sports? We could start with Bianca.
My message would be just go for it. Don't allow anybody to tell you that you can't do it. Don't allow anybody to burst your bubble. Like, just achieve anything that you believe you can achieve, you can. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of mental toughness, but anything that you want to do, you can always get through and always achieve as long as you put your mind to it. Just go for it. Never let anything get in the way of it.
Morgan?
I would say don't give up. There will be hard times. There will be days wherein you want to quit or you don't feel like you're worth anything or that you're not doing good in your job, but it is worth it. People notice it, and you just have to keep your head high and to never give up, and there are brighter days ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say there are going to be hills and valleys like there are in anything. And those days where you're in a low valley, like those are the days that count. One of a professional runner that I've read her books, and I think she's great. She said, as long as you put on a pair of shoes and you get out there and you run just a mile, that's a day that you're still doing something. So I would say that to anybody, that, I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard, but go for it because you never know what's going to come of it. I didn't know when I was 7 that I'd be running in college. I always hoped so, but I wouldn't have known that if I had just given up when something got hard, or if someone had said, well, why are you doing that? This is not your best race. If I'd given up after every bad race, I would definitely not be here. So I think just kind of keep trucking. And if you're a little kid that was like, I think I'd be pretty good at that. If you have the confidence, yeah, you will be good at it.
Awesome. Well, some very powerful words of wisdom from our panelists today, Bianca, Molly, Morgan. Thank you all for joining us. And thanks all of you for watching today. Make sure to stay tuned to our social media platforms for more content related to National Girls and Women in Sports Day celebration here at UNC Pembroke.